Board meeting in September, the last one. I want to remind you that we have a study session on the 22nd. That's next Tuesday. Roll call. We have one absence, Ms. Monty Castle. The rest of the board's here. We have roll call student representatives, Anna and Julia. Welcome. Would you please stand for the pledge? I also would like for you to remain standing after the pledge. Thank you. Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stand. We have the Star Spangled Banner performed by Murata second period band class in honor of September 11, 2001. I'd like to request a moment of silence for Mr. Harvey E. Robbins that passed away on August 26th. Mr. Robbins was a two-term member of the Lodi Unified School Board of Education, serving from 1996 to 2004. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Report on closed session. Placement of non-public school students. It was moved by Mr. Womack, second by Mr. Neely. The board approved the placements of non-public school 2015-2016 students number 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82 by the following vote of 6-0, 1 absent. That's all to report on closed session. We have the superintendent's report, please.
President, members of the board, have a picture to show you Bear Creek is enjoying their new facilities. It looks gorgeous. If you haven't had a chance to go out there and take a look at it, you might want to do so. It's a beautiful, beautiful field. I also want to let you know that on October 2nd, Good Day Sacramento will be at Murata Middle School due to a story on students wearing hats for cancer. This is an activity that they do, and it's also a fundraiser, so they will be on TV on October 2nd. You might want to tune into that. Also let you know that we are awaiting the governor's decision on legislation about the high school exit exam. As you know, there's been changes in the state testing system. The California high school exit exam has been one of those things that has been discussed as being eliminated in the future in the current format. This new piece of legislation would enable all students who met graduation requirements except that of passing the high school exit exam to be awarded a diploma. So if it does pass, which we anticipate that it will, we will do the best that we can to notify students. This goes back many years since the beginning of the California high school exit exam. For students who met all of the requirements except that, they can receive their diploma. We'll get the word out as best we can. We know that addresses may not be good anymore that are on our records, but if folks come forward, we will be issuing them a diploma. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Washer. We have a recognition award, 2015 CSEA Classified Employee of the Year. Ms. Deborah Ludwig, please.
Thank you. Good evening, President Nava, board members, and Superintendent Washer. I'm Deborah Ladwig, President of CSEA Lodi Chapter 77, and I'm here tonight to make public the award of the 2015 CSEA Chapter 77 Employee of the Year. Today we are privileged to publicly acknowledge Marvel Bristow as our CSEA Employee of the Year. We are honoring Marvel with this award from coworkers and fellow members of our Lodi CSEA chapter. This is our way of letting her know just how special she is and how much we appreciate everything she does. Now this comes to Marvel after a long career with Lodi Unified. This October will mark Marvel's completion of 26 years with Lodi Unified. She started with Lodi as a campus supervisor at Tokay High in October of 1989. And Marvel's tenure at Tokay High as a campus supervisor was not without merit. She was twice nominated for Staff of the Month award at Tokay High in September of 93 and again in September of 94. These nominations came as recognition of Marvel's great work with the students of Tokay High School and her ability to make personal connections with the students that led to an improved school climate. After serving the students at Tokay High for over 16 years, Marvel became a student welfare and attendance advisor in January of 2006. This is where Marvel has really been able to shine. Marvel is great at working with students and their families to keep the students in school. But that's not all. In addition to the great work that Marvel does every day with students and their families, Marvel also finds time in her schedule to help her colleagues and fellow CSEA members. Marvel has been a leading force in our CSEA chapter for a long time, serving on the CSEA Executive Board and attending Union Steward training. We received multiple nominations for Marvel for this award, citing her attention to fellow workers and her desire to make sure that everyone is included in union activities. Marvel makes sure that her fellow CSEA members are kept up to date on chapter, as well as regional and statewide activities, and she watches out for folks who might need a helping hand, and she is always right there to help. Because Marvel Bristow has so selflessly given of her time and herself, we are truly honored today to recognize her as our CSEA Chapter 77 Employee of the Year.
I'm just a little bit overwhelmed. I'm not this type of person to get awards, so I just thank everybody for the honor, and I want to dedicate this to my family because they are who has made me who I am today. Thank you all for all the work and association throughout the years.
Congratulations, Marvel. My gosh, thank you for all the years of service. You've been around the district for so many years, and every time I go, especially to McNair, I see you there around, and you're always visible. Thank you again, and congratulations. Continue on with the agenda. We have some action items. Consent agenda A, routine business. Any board members would like to pull any of the items on the routine agenda? None? Any Members from the audience,
813, please.
813.
President Nava,
Mr. Freitas.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, been moved
Second.
and second by Mr. Everly to approve consent agenda A. All in favor? Let's get the vote, board vote, please. I apologize. I thank you for reminding me that student vote. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Johnston, item A13.
Mr. Nava, members of the board, Dr. Washer, as you may know, this year marks the end of our current 3-year collective bargaining agreement. The association LEA has an interest in beginning work on that as soon as possible. I think many of you have also echoed that sentiment to try to begin work on the renewal of our successor agreement as quickly as possible, with the intent of not only getting to an agreement before the end of the school year, but also having an idea of where we stand financially going into next year instead of waiting until the 11th hour to try to get a deal. So we urge your approval of the consent agenda item. We look for the public hearing at our next meeting, and we also hope and urge the district to generate its sunshine proposals so that we can begin bargaining as quickly as possible and hopefully work through the myriad of issues that I'm sure we'll face in this coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Board members, item A13.
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Mr. Neely, second by Mr. Everly, to approve item A13. That's student vote. Okay, let's call for the board vote. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Continue on with the agenda, consent agenda B, student discipline cases. Mr. Neely, move to approve consent agenda B.
Second.
Second by Mr. Talkin. Students do not vote on this. We have a board vote, please. Yes, lower electronics. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Other items, certification 2014-15 unaudited actuals. Mr. Hearn.
Thank you, President Nava. I'd like to introduce Maria Fong, our Senior Director and Controller for the district, to give you the report on the unaudited actuals.
Good evening, Mr. Navas and member of the board. As stated by Mr. Hearn, we're here to present the unaudited actuals. The accounting department has closed the books, and this report is being presented for your approval and certification. So, the report includes all the financial activities for all the funds in the district. They also include financials and compliance reports as required by CBE. Once the report has been approved by the board, they will be forwarded to our county office of education. We would then forward them to the California Department of Education. Next week, we have the auditor scheduled to come to the district to go ahead and review our financial and finish any compliance testing that they have left over from last spring. The following slide will be summarizing how the district ended for the different funds. Beginning with the general fund, the general fund ended as $32 million, which is an $8 million decrease from over last year, $3 million in the restricted one and $5 million on the unrestricted side. As required by GASB 54, we also need to break down the ending fund balance in various components depending on the restriction that is placed on that ending fund balance. As noted there, about 1 million is non-expendable, and they represent our warehouse inventory, our prepaid expenses, and our revolving cash. Over 7 million is restricted, and that means those funds has been restricted by outside agencies such as the state government or federal government, or how we can spend the money. Almost 16 million has been set aside for specific purposes, and they will be listed on the next slide. And lastly, about over $8 million is the minimum reserve required by the state. So on this slide lists the different items that have been set aside for that 60 million. As you can see, most of them is for instructional materials, special education. We have also set aside $1 million for grade span adjustment protection should one of the school site may exceed that enrollment for that school site, and then we have some resources to be able to transfer the student or do some transportation. And then we have another $5 million that is in addition to the state required reserve for economic uncertainty. And then this is just a pretty picture about how the ending fund balance and the various components. And this slide number 5 lists the other operating funds. The major ones are the cafeteria, our self-insurance for workers' comp and property and liability, and also our self-insurance for health benefits for our retired employees that are eligible. Slide 6 shows the balances that we have for construction funds. And lastly, our slide number 7 shows the balances that we have set aside or required to be set aside to repay the district bond, indebtedness, and capital leases. Those debts are about $173 million of the $403 million total debt that the district has, and that is shown on Schedule 147. So with that, that's how we ended this, the year for last fiscal year, and we recommend that the board approve the unaudited actuals as presented. Does the board have any other question or would like additional information? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah, Mr. Everly?
On the, I guess the cover sheet for this item, the very first PDF has a bunch of ending fund balances. And it does show, the debt service, the self-insurance, and all those. Those are different from the general fund 32 million?
Oh, yes. The 32, the general fund?
That was slide 1, right?
Yes.
General fund 32 million.
Yes, those are different funds.
Let me make sure.
So, let's say the cafeteria fund has 8 million.
Yes.
That is not counted in the 32 million.
That's
No,
correct.
that's correct.
That's correct.
It is not.
It is not.
Thank you. That was just an example of that sheet.
Right.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from students? Comments from the public?
Oh, stop. I'm not that famous yet. Mr. Nava, members of the board, a couple of concerns about the unaudited actuals. The first is the ending fund balance. Currently, the district is carrying an ending fund balance which represents 12.25% of the operating budget, and that still seems a bit high. Based on the multi-year projections that the district has published, that number is expected to go up based on the current finance projections for the 15-16 school year. So my concern is spending dollars that are earmarked for kids on kids in the year that the dollars are earmarked for. That may sound a bit circular, but the state's giving money for kids and we're expecting to spend it on kids. A certain level of reserve is prudent for a district this size. a reserve greater than 3% required by the state. But keeping 4 times that limit seems excessive. We're also keeping 12.58% down in the last line on this sheet in Fund 67, which is our self-insurance fund. And I understand that there are unforeseen incidents that may arise that may necessitate having a self-insurance fund. But combined, you're looking at $65 million that maybe doesn't all need to be held in the piggy bank. The second part of this that is really, really concerning to me and very disappointing, when the association and the district reached agreement in June, there was contingency language placed in the tentative agreement regarding the ending fund balance, and at the time, we were using the second interim report, which you approved in March, as a benchmark for what we projected the ending fund balance to be. And through a series of transfers, coincidentally, the district is now just $251,000 under what was necessary to trigger that contingency language. It seems unlikely that the number would be that close to just being under triggering contingency language as to not warrant a raised eyebrow, considering that especially with Fund 67, that the amount of money transferred into the self-insurance fund is discretionary and subject to the approval of the board. So I would urge you to take a long, hard, close look, because if we're looking at building an esprit de corps, a sense of trust between management, governance, and rank and file members, having numbers fall just that short seems to be more than coincidental. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Susan Heverly, 1440 Iris Drive. I just have a quick comment or a quick story to tell you. My son-in-law, who works, who's a hazardous materials consultant, goes out and checks to make sure that companies are compliant. Anyway, he's new to the education community, and so it was really difficult for him to understand why his brother-in-law would have to spend money out of his own pocket to buy classroom supplies. And we tried to explain to him that this was a common occurrence that was going on, and he just couldn't, he had a very difficult time being a taxpayer. He said, I pay my taxes. I can't believe that, you know, somebody comes to my door and they're selling tickets so they can buy pencils. And he wasn't talking about specifically Lodi Unified, but when he was living in Sacramento. And so I just want to once again say how important it is that the money, especially when the voters in Prop 30 were told that they would have reduced class sizes and classroom supplies, and we would be doing great things for our students. And not that we haven't given them some money, but I do not believe that the money that we have designated for our classrooms and our laboratories are in the position that makes them of a superior quality. And I would like you to consider addressing this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Mr. Neely. Move to approve certification 2014-15 highlighted actuals by Mr. Neely. I need a second. Second by Mr. Womack. Student vote. Board vote. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Going on with the agenda, reapproval of 2015-2018 Local Control Accountability Plan due to technical revisions. Dr. Kotowski.
Thank you.
I just gave you a new title.
I love it.
It's
Thank you
honorary,
very
by
much.
the way.
Okay. I'll take it even if it is honorary.
Okay.
We're bringing forward to you a revised LCAP based on conversation that we had with the county that began in the first weeks of August. When they started to review our LCAP, there were some technical revisions that needed to be made. Some of them were formatting. It was a pretty strenuous work that we had to do. Copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, but we're here to bring those technical revisions to you for approval and submit it to the county again.
Thank you, Lisa. Any comments from the board?
I have a question, yes.
Yes, Mr. Everly.
In reviewing the document, some of the comments that were in red said the same thing from one year to the other, and it was, one of them, the very first line was 6 teachers unassigned or, misassigned or whatever the other terms were, but 6 teachers misassigned. I can see that then for the 15-16 school year, but then it goes to the 16-17 and the 17-18, it says the same thing. Now, I can understand it repeating in different sections, but when it repeats in different years, how do we know that next year and the year after that, we're going to have 6 teachers misassigned?
We don't know. However, and we hope we wouldn't have those teachers misassigned, but I can only just say to you very simply, those were the directions we were told to follow, so we had to follow those directions. And simply is cut and paste to meet the county standard. And
Seems a little on the bizarre side.
it was a very trying situation, yes.
And there was another one that kind of went along with that, and again, it was not from section to section, but it was from year to year. And it was, I believe, dropout rate for middle school students. And it was a certain percentage, and then right after that, it said, here's where we are, this is what our goal is. We don't know what our dropout rate is going to be for the next couple of years.
That's right.
Yet it's in there, and I thought that was kind of odd too.
It was a very odd situation, that's all I can say, is stay professional.
The county, they're the group that approve it before it goes to the state. So
Yes.
you're saying that they're thinking that's okay too?
Mhm. We were directed that way.
All right, just want to let you know, I kind of read that and noticed
I
that.
appreciate you reading it and signing with me, Mr. Beverly, thank you.
It just, your year seemed a little odd. So,
Yes.
okay, that's why I brought it up.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the students? Comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Neal.
Second.
Let me finish, but thank you, Lisa, for the report, okay? And you do what you've been told, and that's what counts, because I know that the county will get it right.
Okay.
Been moved by Mr. Neely, second by, Mr. Heverly, to approve the 2015 Local Control Accountability Plan with the revisions. Student vote. All right, board vote. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Personnel matters. Mr. Neely. Move to approve personnel matters by Mr. Neely, second by Mr. Womack. No student vote on this. Let's call for board vote. Looks like my computer at home.
There we go.
There you go, okay. Motion carries 6-0, 1 absent. Okay, we have comments from student representatives. We'll start out with Julia today.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. First, I want to start off with our after-school program. This is the first year that Tokay High School has had an after-school program. So far, we have over 100 students participating in tutoring and other various activities. This week, our enrichment classes have started. So cooking class, board games, exercise classes after school have started, and so students are taking a liking to that and having somewhere to go after school. Student government was able to plan our first rally on September 11th, and it went really well. We were able to see cheer performance and dance performances and have fun on a Friday. We also created our Tokay Tribe, which is our student section for any type of sporting event, so it helps us be more spirited for our school and support our athletes. We are also currently still planning homecoming, which is next week, and we are all excited about that. Comedy Sports is having a very good turnout, which is a theater production and it's improv kind of sporting event. And many college presentations are occurring right now to help seniors prepare for college and to see what they want. We would also like to recognize Sophie Chin as a National Merit Scholar semifinalist. And that is it. Thank you.
Julia, I have a question. You have a program on the Thursday and Friday.
Yes.
Yes. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. This Thursday and Friday, Tokay is having our Every 15 Minutes program, which is a staged car accident to prevent students from drinking and driving, to show what can occur from that and how it should be prevented and various things.
Thank you. Julia?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Anna?
Hello, Mr. President, board members. First off, I'd like to thank you so much for our brand new field. It's beautiful. Everyone raves about it. It's very, very nice. I'd first like to start off with, we had our Rachel's Challenge, a program that came to Bear Creek on September 3rd. The program was brought to us by students. They started last year trying to pursue this goal, and they finally got the program to come this year. We had 2 assemblies. We gathered all students to attend. The presentation is about creating a culture of kindness on campus. Rachel was the first student to be shot in the Columbine shooting, and after she was killed, her journals were uncovered. Rachel had written an essay exposing her 5 goals everyone should live by. Her family was so inspired that they made an organization to travel worldwide and spread her story to change the environment on campuses. During the assembly, many students connected and accepted Rachel's challenge. Student leadership was brought back, and we got trained and explored new methods of kindness that we can expose on campus. Everyone's really excited to participate in our own spin of Rachel's challenge, which we've started. Another topic I'd like to address, we have a new requirement on campus. All student athletes have to submit a grade check every week. If a student has a grade of 74% or lower, they must attend 2 out of the 3 days of tutorial. If a student is failing a course, he or she must have 3 documents of tutorial forms turned in weekly until passing the class. Administration has also pushed back practice times till 3:30 so students can attend tutorial without cutting into practice time. This will help students keep on track and help them if they're struggling in any course. This program is still in the making, but it's been put into effect. In student government, we were all trained during Rachel's Challenge, and we started our first project. We have picked a teacher that we felt needed some love on campus to be appreciated. Mrs. Midnick is our English and speech and debate teacher. So we had a big thank you sign on the marquee in the staff parking lot, made her a poster, and her students signed it with words of kindness and appreciation. We gave her a picture of the marquee and the posters during the activities class presented the poster to her, and she was in all awe, very happy. She emailed our student government teacher and expressed how grateful she was for it and that she needed that extra boost in her day. This is just the first act as a community we are going to participate in this year. Our student activities class is also taking off in a great direction. We've started a lot of lunchtime activities for all students to participate in. We're also looking for clubs on campus to participate in their own games or activities for lunchtime, so all students are aware of the different groups on campus. And we also have a Friend of Rachel's Club that is another branch of Rachel's Challenge that is being formed and created to do things like we did for our teacher and many more spins to make our campus connect and do kind things for each other. Another thing we have is we have when teachers have instructional leadership team meetings, we now have 2 student government representatives attend the meetings. Students participate in conversation and discuss goals in the school to get everyone involved, including teachers. The main goal of the meeting right now is trying to make an action plan and a permanent plan. So our school, if we have administration changes or anything changes out of the normal, our goal will still stay the same and we can progress in the direction our campus wants, not the administration. And I finally have the dates for our performances. We have 3. Our Town is the upcoming one. It's opening December 4th and closing December 12th. We have The Tempest. It's only being put on by Advanced Theater, so it's only going to be a 2-day show, April 8th and 9th. And then we're going to have a spring show of Grease, and it will be open May 6th and close May 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I'm glad that your teachers have a lot of flexibility in including those students to attend those meetings because students are very important to us. Thank you. I want to just make an announcement. Measure L will have a meeting tomorrow at Bear Creek Library. Anybody from the public is welcome to attend. Measure L is responsible for some of these fields and the buildings and so forth in the North Stockton area. 5 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Pullman. Okay, comments from the public. I want to tell you have 3 minutes, and we have Kimberly Day. Kimberly?
Kimberly Day has friends. Good evening. My name is Kimberly Day, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my partner Melissa McClellan, and the other 12 transitional kindergarten teachers at Lodi Unified. Melissa and I have been teaching transitional kinder, or TK, at Lawrence for the last, since it was first adopted 4 years ago. It's been a positive and rewarding experience. Each year, we are given the opportunity to lay the educational foundation for the students who don't meet the kindergarten cutoff date. Over the past 4 years, we've gone through the trials and challenges that every new program faces, but we've always have been able to overcome them. We've seen our program grow from 4 classes at 2 sites to 15 classes at 6 sites. Melissa and I are fortunate to be a part of such an experienced and professional team of teachers. The 14 of us have worked closely over the last 3 years to ensure the integrity and success of the transitional kindergarten program. Now in this 4th year, we are experiencing a new challenge that we need your help in overcoming. Each year, we have received many positive comments from the kindergarten teachers at our site. They say they can see huge differences in the way that the TK students who come to them act, behave, and conduct themselves in the kindergarten classroom. We've attributed this positive behavior to the smaller student-to-teacher ratio of 20:1 that we have in TK. We are able to give more attention and time to each of our students, and this allows for smaller group instruction and lets us target specific areas of need for each of our students. We were saddened and surprised to learn that our class size will be going up to 24. We were saddened because our attention will now be spread thin with the addition of the 4 new students, making it more difficult to ensure the success of each and every one of our students. We were surprised because of the short notice that we received about the class size increase. We were actually notified on the same day the change became effective. Furthermore, I was notified during my instructional time, and just an hour later I received my 21st student. Due to the unexpected arrival of the student, I had no time to prepare, gather materials, or ensure that he had a successful first day. We believe this is a drastic change to our program, and that we deserved the courtesy of being given some advance notice. Perhaps we could have been notified by Superintendent Lampkin at our first TK meeting, which of course she was invited to, or by email days before the change became effective. Furthermore, we question the reasoning for the increased class size, especially when not all Lodi sites were full at 20. and our 15th class was dissolved just days before the first day of school. We disagree with the reason given to us by Superintendent Lapkin when she said that students need to be afforded the opportunity to attend school closer to their attendance area. Since TK is not mandatory and not available at every elementary site, there really are no attendance area restrictions for our students. It's always been a first come, first serve registration, and if one site is full, then parents are directed to the next closest site with availability. It makes no sense to have 1 or 2 classes full at 24 while others sit with room at 18, which is exactly what is happening right now. We all believe 14 existing classes should have been filled at 20 before the thought of raising the class size to 24 was even entertained. We also disagree with the fact that this change was enforced after the school year had already begun. We are unclear as to whether this change was done in the appropriate manner. Can you clarify the district rules for raising class sizes once the year has begun? Is it something that should have come before the board for approval? Although we are a small group of 14 teachers, we are strongly unified in the belief that TK class size should not have been changed. If there is anything you can do to protect the success of the TK program by getting the class size lowered back down to 20, we ask that you consider that. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Kendra.
Good evening, Superintendent Washer, board members, and all of us here this evening. My name's Tamara Hudson. I teach transitional kindergarten at Podesta Ranch Elementary School. 4 years ago, we were hired to begin and implement the transitional kindergarten program to include the creation of report cards, assessments, along with a pacing guide. Today, I come to you with a concern. Our numbers have had a sudden change without notice. Numbers impact how things are run. There was a haphazard move from 20 to 24 students to cap our classes. We had no classroom visitations and no discussions with any of the team members by anyone who made these changes. When we were hired, Catherine had the belief that with these numbers we could make a difference. Districts can choose much of how we put together the TK program. Some districts, like Lincoln Unified, I knew the person working for Lincoln Unified, chose to theme their units without buying or implementing any formal adoptions. We are very fortunate and thankful to Catherine Pennington for these programs. Without adoptions, programs like Lincoln Unified tend to have much less structure. They didn't have any adoptions, and she was asked to theme everything out herself. She worked from nothing. Thankfully, we have had everything given to us, and we had many, many programs. From the inception of the program, it has been very structured, and we've adopted 3 programs. We have an ELA program, we have a Handwriting Without Tears program. Our ELA program is Little Treasures, and we have a math program. So we have 3 very, very awesome programs that we were lucky enough to get. So, increasing class sizes will force us to water down our current program, lessening the one-on-one time necessary for building for children bridging the gap from preschool to elementary ed. We decided to increase the structure, which is optional, because the numbers allowed for it. The children in our program have done really well. As the years have progressed in the TK program, we've seen growing numbers of children foregoing preschool, anticipating the TK program. Well, in result, we get kids that are less prepared and with anything from pencils to markers to crayons to scissors to anything. All I can see I do see some safety hazards too. Teaching a group of 4 children to operate scissors as opposed to teaching a group of 6 kids to operate scissors is huge. Before our program existed, the kinder of yesteryear, back before us, used to receive a handful of students of fall birthdays. They tended to be socially and emotionally immature and very needy. Now we have a full classroom of them. There is a reason that our numbers were set up at 20, as Catherine Pennington fought to keep our numbers low.
20 seconds.
The purpose is preparation and independence for an easier transition to kinder. We love what we do and the ages we work with, and feel very privileged to be a part of Lodi Unified's transitional kindergarten program. And I urge you to really think about the numbers put into our program because they are much younger than, and I think the numbers in kindergarten should be lessened as well. They are much younger and they take a lot more time and interaction with the adults. Come and visit us, please.
Thank
You will
you.
see that.
Thank you. Jenny Squires. Is that correct name, Jenny Squires? I'm sorry. Is that the correct name?
It is. Janae.
Janae, sorry.
I don't know if it's time, but good evening, Mr. President and board members. This is in regards to the mold issue. So I don't know if you need to call me at a later time or if it's ready to be
It's
addressed.
public comment, so.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the
okay.
agenda, yes.
Okay. My daughter
It's
is.
on the agenda, so it's during the agenda time.
Okay. so
Okay,
that's not
very
now.
good.
Okay.
Carla also has a mold issue, okay? So we'll wait for the next, for it to show up on the agenda. Okay, we have comments from employee group representatives.
Good evening, Dr. Washer, Mr. Nava, members of the board. My name is John Hunt, president of LPPA. I was here last spring when the SLPs made an impassioned presentation about ratios, and we just wanted to thank you for not only listening, and basically they are pulling the grievance back off the table, and we just wanted to thank you for showing consideration for their argument. I think you really listened, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you kindly for your email. Any other comments from group representatives?
So good evening, President Nava, members of the board, and Superintendent Washer. Again, I'm Deborah Ladwood, President of the Lodi CSEA, Chapter 77. I'd like to start off again by thanking you for the opportunity to publicly recognize our very special Marvel Bristow. It's such a joy to celebrate with all of our members. I would also like to thank you tonight during your consent agenda, sorry, approving the new work experience assistant intern. We're very excited about that. We'll get back to the table and negotiate the rest of the effects, and hopefully that'll be all settled. Later on this evening, you're going to discuss the school mold. And it just seemed very timely that this issue came up. Just last week, when I met with Superintendent Washer, I brought up a concern about the amount of custodial staff that we still have at our sites. We're still working with diminished custodial staff at each of our sites. And just as an example, or for discussion, one full-time custodian is about 2,000 hours of service in a year. I know that we have instituted the CRT, the Custodial Response Team. If it has 5 members on the team and they come to your school for a week, they would do about 200 hours worth of work. In order for them to make up for a year's worth of not having one custodian, they'd have to stay for 10 weeks. Then they could only get to 5 sites in a year. It would take, make sure I did this right, almost 10 years for them to get to the last site at that rate, to make up for one less custodian at each site. Some of the reason that we are having problems with being able to maintain our facilities is because we have decreased custodial staff. It's really important that we have enough people there to make sure that the sites are clean and safe for our students, our employees, and our community. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I didn't think I'd pass the opportunity up, did you?
Okay.
Mr. Nava, members of the board, on our sign up there behind Mr. Womack, our mission and vision statement, one of our visions is a high-quality staff that enjoys its work. And one of the components, I believe, of a staff enjoying their work is a successful work environment that's predicated upon transparent leadership and open communications. And I think we're still suffering from challenges in that area. The TK issue that my colleagues so eloquently brought before you is one such example. There was no conversation in advance to the changes. There was no discussion about what possible solutions we could reach together. It was an email to principals that went out to teachers that said, by the way, today this change is happening, and within an hour, new students were being added to the classes. And we had a long-standing, unwritten, unfortunately, understanding agreement with Ms. Pennington that those classes would be staffed at 20 to 1 because those students are so much younger and at a very early stage of psychosocial and academic development. They need the extra attention. But there was no communication, there was no collaboration, it was just implemented. I think the mold situation that we're facing is another example of where we are lacking in clear communication. In some places, the logic of cleaning doesn't make any sense. At Beckman Elementary, a teacher was asked to move out of the classroom. They share a wall, one of those partition walls, with another classroom. Classroom A was told that they were quarantined, they had to move out, that there was air quality issues. Well, if there's air quality issues in one room and they share a paper wall, it stands to reason that there should be air quality issues in the other room, but room B isn't touched. And the same thing happens again and again in our school sites. Or teachers are asked to move out of the class and nobody's told why we're moving. Just get all your students, this happened at Needham, pick up all your books and move. Well, if the room is contaminated, then taking the material out of that room to another room doesn't make sense. And yet when we inquire, why are we moving, we're not getting clear answers. And I understand there's going to be a protocol presented. And protocols are great if people are heard. But the problem is when we go through, as some of our teachers have been told, the chain of command, and we don't get a response, we don't get an update, we don't get an acknowledgement that an email's been sent or that the complaint has been registered, it's very, very frustrating. I think you heard that clearly manifested with the parents and teachers at Morgan. And they finally got to a place that they'd had enough and they said, we're not going to take it anymore. We need clear communication back. It's not a one-way street. And if you count the number of sites that we've had mold issues in the last 3 years, I think you're going to find that it's going to be well over more than half of our sites. So Deb's impassioned plea for more custodial support is greatly needed. And it's not just mold. We should have a long conversation about the rodent problem at Lockford. Teachers are really, really icky out, gross out, disgusted by finding rodent droppings on their file cabinets. And I got an email from a teacher today that said she was meeting with another teacher in her classroom and she watched the rat walk across her file cabinets. I know that we've communicated with M&O, and I know that M&O has been diligent in sending DELC pest control out. I got the confirmation emails that this had been addressed, but the problem isn't being fixed. And there's not a clear communication about how we're going to continue to fix these problems. The last communication issue I want to bring to your attention is common planning time. We have to start treating teachers like professionals. When a school site indicates that they're going to require all the teachers to come to the library and sit down like their students so that they can be monitored by the principal during common planning time, we're not treating people like professionals. The resources that we need to plan aren't in the library, they're in our classroom. We need to be working with our grade level teammates so that we're planning the best curriculum so that when we do get to smarter balanced assessment, our students across the grade level have the benefit of our combined wisdom. Sitting in a classroom or sitting in the library so the principal can watch us, or better yet, this has been a real big one, showing the Keenan videos on health and occupational safety during common planning time so we know what to do if there's a blood spill. That's not common planning, folks. That's a didactic learning environment, and you're not fostering a collaborative environment. So how do we fix this? There's some solutions. A long time ago, we used to have lead teachers that would come to the district quarterly to meet with the superintendent so that there was a dialogue between sites and staff about what the issues were in the trenches. So you're hearing it authentically from the people who are living it. Look at bringing that back. Treat teachers as the professionals they are. Invest in lateral leadership as opposed to a vertical leadership. Collaborative instead of exhortative. We need to bring people together to work on problems and not tell them how we're fixing it and leave them out of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments from group representatives? Not. Comments from board members?
How you start?
Okay, Mr. Neely, starting.
Deborah, where you at? I got the same thing down here, janitorial and clerical support. We're way far behind on that, and it's time to put those people, maybe we can't put them all back to where we were in 2008, but we can certainly put some back. And we need it both in the janitorial side and the clerical side as well. And I can't find anybody really who disagrees with that, so we just have to make it happen. So thank you for bringing that up. It really is important. The problem happened, everybody, when we went through this crisis, financial crisis, we swept a lot of the money for maintenance out of that and put it into the general fund to try to keep people working. And now that we're through that, there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be caught up on, a lot. I was talking to Mr. Simpson at Tokay, found out that their theater has 2 air conditioner units on it that are 35 years old. They're so old they can't get parts for them anymore, so what they've been doing is they've been cannibalizing one to keep the other one running. So the place has only got 1 air conditioner working on it right now. There are a lot of things like that we need to look at, and probably what needs to happen is our M&O needs to put together a priorities. They may already have, and I'm just not aware of it. But maybe we could bring that up and let's take a look at the maintenance. On the clerical side, spoken with Dr. Washington. She said, hey, we're not getting timely reports because those people don't have the time, because they're so busy. So there are some things that we need to do on that. We need to move on it as soon as possible. So thank you for bringing that up. My reason for going to Tokay meeting with Mr. Sundstrom was another issue. First of all, this has to do with digital technology, surprise. I want to thank the district for the rollout that you've done in the one-on-one. People are pretty happy with what's out there. Tokay is not one of those schools, but Mr. Sundstrom was telling me that they're fighting for the carts, for the Chromebook carts. So people are using it, so that's great. It wasn't just too long ago they didn't know what to do with them, but now they're using them, so that's a good thing. What I would like to do, and I'm going to have this put on the agenda for the October 6th meeting, I want to talk about starting a digital academy in a couple of our schools. And I've talked to Eric, and he backs me on this, and he'd like to do it there at Tokay. And we're talking maybe 300 kids or so. We'll have to work all that out. But what that will allow us to do is it'll allow us to learn the problems that we're going to have when we eventually do go all digital. We had a couple of people last week who brought up about the textbooks being out of date. By the way, the social studies textbook that Tokay is using still shows Barack Obama as a junior senator. Yeah, that's the problem with textbooks. They get out of date so quickly. So what we're going to end up doing is eventually we will be all digital. When you go all digital, there's a whole new set of problems. And you got to learn what they are, and you got to try to come up with the fixes for them. So that's why we need to start small. So I'm thinking I'd like to do a high school, Tokay, for absolutely selfish reasons, because it's in my area. The other thing I'd like to do is start one in North Stockton, and I'm thinking Bear Creek because Krista McCullough feeds into it, and then you know, we put on Lodi Middle and we put on Kristen McCullough and all that, and then we just start gradually making this thing bigger to eventually we're not having to buy textbooks, you know? We get our information updated just as soon as possible. And also, kids get so involved with digital technology. It's about student engagement. And it's not easier to teach with digital technology, believe me, it's harder because you've got so much available to you now. So it's a tougher job, but what we could do is build that website I've been talking about for 5 years now, where teachers can put their stuff and share it with other teachers. And that would be the collaboration. So I'd like to see that happen. SBAC testing came out. I would like to see us get a report on that and what we plan to do about it. It would be easy for us to say that this is the first year and we have nothing to compare it to, so there's nothing we can do about it. It would be easy to say that. And let's hope that we don't do that. Let's hope that we take a hard look at these results and see where we've had successes. Let's go to those schools where we've had successes. I'll tell you one right now, Michael Maroka out at Live Oak. I mean, he killed it out there. He did a great job. So we need to find out what Mike is doing to prepare his students for that test. I want to talk about professional development real quick for our teachers. Stockton Unified is trying a program where they're doing professional development online. I think that's a fantastic idea. We have so many days that the teachers have to complete professional development. Some of that could probably be done online at their convenience. And that would make it great for everybody. The district could develop those programs with the help of our schools. We could share some of the best common practices that way. And so I'd like us to take a look at that. By the way, I really want to thank you for your work on professional development and developing all the different classes for teachers to pick from. That's where we need to be at. We need to be where a couple of days of professional development, teachers are allowed to pick what they need. I think that would be great. Maintenance of schools. Not only personnel maintenance, but we're having some real maintenance problems with concrete deteriorating, that kind of thing. That's going to kind of play into the mold issue too. So actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait to talk about that until we get to the mold issue. TK classes, well, it doesn't seem like we handled that one too well. Just kind of blew it there. You know, when you make a mistake, you stand up and say, hey, we made a mistake. We need to get that. That's not the right way to do things. We should have been talking to you guys a long time before. That's on us, all right? I'm sorry that happened to you. And the big thing is we need to look at what we've done, and we need to not have that happen again. We can't just call up people and say, oh, you got 4 bodies coming. That doesn't work that way. Last thing, comedy sports. Went there and saw that. That is so much fun. If you guys get a chance to go out to one of the high schools and watch the comedy sports, it's fantastic. Those kids are great. You think it's what's that improv show that they used to do? Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's much like that. And it's 2 teams competing. So anyway, that's it. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
Yes.
Mr. Womack?
My congratulations also to Marvel Bristow for the Employee of the Year. And thank you to Anna, because I was going to try to explain Rachel's challenge. I went to the morning session and it was very awe-inspiring. So I'm really glad to see that the school is following up on that. You eloquently explained it so I don't have to. Also, I made a visit to Liberty High School and spent about an hour and a half there going into classrooms and what have you. And so what I got from the classroom was one thing, but I also noticed how nice the school was. And so another shout out to M&O. They've done a wonderful job, not only in the paint and what have you, but the outside area in the back, which was just, there was nothing there to speak of. It's now all been paved and fixed up, and some tables for the students because they don't have a cafeteria there, so they have a place to eat. It's just really good. So thank you, Mitch, and you and your crew for that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also echo my congratulations to Marvel. She is a marvel. She is really very professional and a wonderful person, and she's most deserving. I too was going to mention the TK, and there are several issues that I kind of identified within that, and one of them that is, most of them are in our control, and one that's absolutely in our control is communication. It seems like agencies and businesses have a really difficult time communicating. You know, we're in the education field, and most teachers I know have no problem talking and communicating. That's what they do. They communicate with their students and their parents. And I think that expectation should kind of go up the chain also. Just a small communication with an explanation, not, oh, by the way, you're getting 4 kids. There's nothing wrong with the deeper conversation also. And that also what it allows the teachers to prepare additional materials for those that are coming, and it's not a big surprise. I just kind of taken aback that that's still occurring, and there'll be some other communications coming about that, I can tell you. One of the things that I was going to bring up, and I'll hold this one off, but I'll just kind of give you a taste of it, is that custodial and M&O and all of those things in regards to our school maintenance, identifying issues, correcting issues. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the mold, because it's a circular thing. If you have deferred maintenance, you can very well expect that things are going to deteriorate, so you better expect that you're going to have to put more emphasis on that so that our employees and students are in healthy environments. The final thing I wanted to mention is that our high school ag departments, FFA, they are, and I believe they're all working together, are gathering up donations for residents of the recent fires that are very close to us. I'm sure most of us felt the ash in the morning on our cars. So it's close. And if just, when you go home, look at your house when you walk in and say, oh, it's now all gone. That's how devastating these things are. So if you do, if you're of that mindset and you want to do something, they're looking for food, clothing, monetary donations to the American Red Cross, because they have certain pipelines that they can house people rather inexpensively because they have contracts, toiletries, those kinds of things. If you'd like, get whatever donations that you feel you'd want to contribute, get them to the FFAs. They will get them to where they need to go because they're collecting. So, and that's it. And we'll talk more about mold later. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? I just have a couple of positive things. I know that Julia mentioned Sophie Chen, named National Merit Scholar semifinalist, and I know Sally was a finalist the year before, so that's quite a family there, and it's okay student. Also want to congratulate Reese music teacher David Short has received a $2,000 grant from Boya Financial. The highlights there is their teaching methods, educational projects, and ability to influence their students are the basis for that. And I think he's going into the finalists for $5,000. Okay, thank you. You bet.
The Got Kids meeting we had yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, yesterday we had a Got Kids board meeting, and we gave away, granted another $12,000 plus to teachers in the district. We're having kind of an issue getting the word out there that everybody knows about it. So here's what it is. Got Kids will give you a grant of up to $1,000. We try to keep it at that. And then we ask that you fundraise some as well for your field trips, for science camp, for things that are outside what the school the district should normally provide for you. So those are the kind of fun things. So we're going to help you with your fundraising on that. We've got some money, all right, and so please go ahead and submit those. One more thing, January 16th, we are having a crab feed for Got Kids. And if you can get the word out to everybody, we've got tickets available. I think they're $45, but it's hot crab. It's not that cheap cold stuff, okay? This is a really good crab feed. There'll be adult beverages there as well for sale. And it's going to be a great time, and it all goes to help the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, let's continue on with the agenda. We have reports. Ms. Vedeka, the positive behavior intervention and support.
We're having a party up here. Good evening, Mr. Nava and members of the board. This is a very exciting report to do. It's all on the positive things that we are doing in our schools. Different schools are further along than others, but Bear Creek has taken the reins, and so we are going to spotlight them tonight. We've had one meeting of one training day for positive behavior interventions and supports, but last year Bear Creek started restorative practices. They trained their whole school this year on top of Rachel's challenge, so I figured that we would just, and they've been running their in-school suspension room and they've been very successful in that. So I figured tonight it would be all about them and they could share some of the things that they're doing, and we're hoping that they will become our model school and other schools will follow suit. Next to me is Enrique Avalos. He is our new positive behavior intervention coordinator. He is heading up the PBIS training. He will talk a little bit about how we're rolling that out. And then we have Bill Adeverd, the principal of Bear Creek High School, Lisa Dieter, the most positive person in Lodi Unified, along with Ren Van Peck, the same thing. They are two people that have been doing great things for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Enrique.
So our district has decided to adopt the PBIS framework, and we're rolling it out using the trainings that are going to be over the course of several years. In a nutshell, PBIS is an approach that helps coordinate what a district's already doing, what schools are already doing, and making it available and clear for everybody, whether it's teaching staff, classified staff, or support staff, or bus drivers. Get everybody on the same page for the ultimate goal of making sure that every child, every student, no matter what their background is, can feel welcome and safe at their school. There is a relationship between the way a student or a child feels and the way they perform. And research shows that if we take the time to make a child feel ever so helped, just that they feel helped and welcome at their school, they're going to go ahead and start doing better. We've done all kinds of things in our district before in developing relationships between teachers and students. This is taking all those things we've already done, we've already do, and applying it to everybody and making sure that we're working together. The trainings that we've had are rolled out to 15 of the schools. We have 3 different cohorts. Cohort 1 is on the left column, and this is the cohort that is being trained right now. This is how we're rolling it out. As you notice, most of the schools are in North Stockton. And what's going to happen is the teachers and the staff from cohort 1 person is being selected to be the coach, the PBIS coach, and that person is going to attend additional trainings so that they become the people that will train additional cohorts. And so the idea is we're not only going to contract with an outsider, we're going to get ourselves trained to make sure we can maintain the system over the years. The cohorts will be trained over the course of 3 years. This is cohort 1's training dates. If you think about this whole process, it's not a magic pill. It's not going to happen overnight. I like comparing it to a glacier. It moves slowly, but you're moving a lot of things at once. And in order to make sure this is successful, we need to get the feedback from the teachers and the feedback from the staff, the parents, and the kids themselves. It's going to take a lot of time to get all of that, put it together, and roll it out as a district. Each school is going to have their leadership team, and in our first training, we've identified who those people are, and we're basically, at this point, looking at what does each school have to offer and how are they going to organize it to offer to the children and their parents. And again, each site is also going to have a coach that is going to help roll it out.
And now we're going to turn it over to Bear Creek to talk a little bit about their behavior intervention class and some of the things they're doing on their site. Mr. Atterbury.
Thank you, Ms. Fedica, Mr. Nava, members of the board. Well, behavior intervention class is part of a system of interventions. And I think in isolation, I don't think it can really be effective. And I think we learned that as a staff, that when we looked at the data, that we had certain students who were disproportionately being suspended and weren't successful. The staff got together, reevaluated what our values and beliefs were, came up with a mission vision statement that espoused significant change, and everything we've done from that, from building the school-wide learner outcomes to the school action plan that defines the specific goals that we have for moving the school forward and for changing the direction, the trajectory of student suspensions and reducing them, especially being able to predict who's being suspended. Everything we've done has spoken to those goals. Rachel's challenge is part of positive behavior intervention. Restorative practice is part of behavioral intervention. The athlete checking for grades is part of positive behavior intervention. Having students become responsible for themselves and to develop empathy, to understand that what they do has implications and who it harms. So that is something that we're doing. So we're talking about the intervention class, behavior intervention class. Yes, we've been successful. If you look at, there's a chart, click, click, click. Oh, you're pointing, you're using the pointer. You get Joe in the eyes with the razor. If you look at from 2012, 13 to 2014, 15, you can see the significant drop in home suspensions. That was a glaring problem 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when the staff looked at the data and decided that some significant changes had to occur. So there's been a concomitant shift in the number of kids at in-school suspension. I have to go back, you go back and this back. You'll see 8 to 10 students per day. Oh, thank you. 8 to 10 students per day. Ours is a little higher than that. We're probably pushing the height of that, the top of that average. And we are also looking at the data and know that we have a lot of repeat students, so it isn't working for some students, so we still have some work to do. But it's focusing on the data and on the effectiveness of the program. And we also have a very apt teacher there who's working on seven steps for 7 behaviors of highly effective students and another behavior intervention in addition to the schoolwork they're doing. So Ms. Dieter is the teacher responsible for our restorative practice. She's our positive behavior intervention teacher who's leading the program, doing an excellent job. So I'll turn over to her and get her perspective.
Okay, thank you. Last year we started talking about ways in which we can reach those frequent flyers that Bill was just talking about. So we did 2 days, actually 4 days of training on restorative practice. The first two days were on restorative circles, where we're dealing with kind of a larger group of kids, and the second training was restorative conferences. Both have been really positive additions to working with our students. Restorative circles can be used in many ways. We do it a lot with our behavioral intervention classes. Maybe we'll have a group of kids that are tardy, and we'll sit around and we'll talk about why they're tardy. We'll brainstorm as to, what are ways we can solve these problems. And it's about building community. It's about students knowing that there are students just like them, and there's adults on campus that care about them, and it's just making connections. Beginning of the school year, we trained all of our staff on restorative circles. So every teacher kind of has that tool in their tool belt where maybe things aren't going great in their class that day. And, you know, sometimes you walk into a classroom and there's just a vibe, something's not right. They can pull their classroom out and they can do a circle. When Enrique said it's like moving a glacier, it is kind of, it's a change. It's kind of being one of the students, and for some teachers it's not comfortable, but they're moving in that direction. So those have gone really well. Restorative conferences, the second part, those are dealing with maybe students that had fought in the community and have come back onto campus. And not only does it involve the two students, but it involves their parents, it involves community members. So it's getting those two kids together, those students together, maybe with their parents, and talking over how the problem impacted not only themselves, how it impacted the school, how it impacted their parents. And those have been so powerful to have parents come in and talk about, you know, the tension that what happened on school, how it leads into the community, and how they can hear both sides of it. It's powerful stuff. What I would say about that is it's time consuming, so that's a little bit slower, but the results of that are pretty phenomenal. And then this year with the PBIS, we're continuing doing circles and conferences. I think probably what I'm most excited about this year is just our students are really excited. I know Anna talked about creating a culture of kindness, and they've really kind of latched onto it. And after the two presentations we had last week for Rachel's Challenge, we had over 150 of our students show up to kind of figure out, not only now that they've heard the message, how are they going to go out into our campus and really kind of create a culture of kindness. And they came up with phenomenal plans, and it's already started. And then we have a big one coming out this week that's completely planned by the students, and just about creating a culture of kindness, including everybody, and just making our school a positive place for every member to come to.
Do you have any questions?
George?
Quick one. This sounds like a fantastic program, and thank you all so much for doing this. Your numbers are absolutely headed in the right direction. And thank you very much for all the work that you're putting on this, because it's incredibly important. I'm just curious, and John, I saw you still back? Yeah. How much is your counseling staff involved in all of this?
I'm so glad you asked.
Well, thank you.
Otherwise I'd just be sitting here. What we've done is our counselors, I love the fact that PBIS really pushes us to use our data and use it well, because it's there. So what we did is, after our progress reports came out, we took our 9th grade students, we looked at their grades and compared it to last year's grades. If there was a big fluctuation, we got with them. We're seeing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the tutorial times, and meeting with them and connecting. Do you need tutoring? What is it that what's not happening here that happened last year? And connecting them with different programs, or working with them weekly. And then what it is we're trying it for this quarter, and then taking and looking at it, if they need to continue with us for next quarter, that's what we're going to do. And next quarter we look at our quarter grades. How much did they slip? Was there growth? And we're going to do that for 9th graders. We're just again, it's the glacier movement. We're trying to use really good data, use our data to ensure that our what we're doing is effective, rather than wasting time bothering teachers in their classroom, using it and being more systematic. And I think that's what PBIS is about. It's not bringing in new programs. It's what you have going, doing it well, so that it's more effective.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, and that's the important piece. I think it needs to be organic. It can't be another program from outside. You need to make it work into the culture and to the fabric of what's going on, and be adapted by school. It needs to happen, but it needs to have that ability to be sustained. Instead of a flash in the pan, let's try this and do that, you need to create those components that are going to make sure it continues.
Well, I like what you're doing here, because I've heard great things about the restorative practices, primarily from you in an admin class, and Tokay High that was implementing it at the time. But that's part of this. So you're looking at a more holistic approach to this whole thing rather than a single program, is that correct? Okay. One more question about, traditionally we have a large drop in achievement in the 9th grade. And that's because kids don't handle change well, going from one environment to the other. So are you doing anything specifically like this to target freshmen?
Yes, Mr. Nava, members of the board, Mr. Neely. The focus, we understand if you lose our students as freshmen, you've lost them.
Right.
So the primary focus for our tutoring center, student study center, patterned after what Lodi High School's been doing for years, was to focus on freshmen who are falling behind. The primary force behind the athletic academic boot camp that we have, we're calling it Sports Academy, I'm sorry, military, you don't understand that. Yeah, the Sports Academy is again recognizing that freshmen struggle and they focus on those things more than others. So we understand that if we don't save the freshmen as the counselors are doing, that they're going to fall behind. So
yeah. Okay. Well, again, thank you guys very much.
Mr. Everly.
Yeah, when you were talking about this, all I could think of was, okay, you're trying to develop a certain culture within your school, which is great. But your high school, you lose, you have 25% of your kids every year, and you got a new 25% coming in front. So it does have to be kind of sustainable, and once everybody's kind of got it, you want to make sure that those new kids coming in. It's a hard transition, for freshmen being small fish in a big pond, and they do get lost. Well, if there are things that they can grab onto, whether it's a club or whether it's sports or band or who knows what, that has a much better chance for success and keep the whole culture going, because if you don't, it's going to start slipping off.
If I may, Mr. Nava, members of the board, Mr. Everly, we spent a year. The students came to us 2013, 14, actually 2000, what is it, 2 years ago, what is it? Yeah, over a year ago, they came to us about racial challenge. But in order to make it sustainable, we needed to create the structure and the teacher support to ensure that it would continue. So Ms. Dieter and 2 other teachers got together, and her counselors involved in that too, to work the student leadership, the link crew, and conflict mediation, so that when they went to camp, they developed an entire different mission and vision to focus on student activities and student success. And there's a Friends of Rachel Club that Anna mentioned that continues it, and also there's another year of training for this racial challenge. We wanted to make sure that it was sustainable, so your point's dead on.
Also, PBIS is a tiered approach. It's the first tier, everybody gets information. It starts in elementary school, everybody gets the expectation of how we act, how we behave. And then those that comply, that's great, but those that can't and they're struggling, they go to the second tier where there's other interventions in place for them, and then more intensive intervention at the level 3 to keep them in school, as you said. So it's a tiered approach. It's everybody, making sure everybody gets it, whether it's suicide awareness, yellow ribbon, everything that's Rachel's challenge, and then those that need extra support, we'll get it in the tier 2, which is, I believe, our freshmen that need to be, we're going to do the check-in with them on a weekly basis.
Earlier you mentioned about that you see your students, or your counselor, you see your kids that are during tutorial time. Is that the after-school program, or is that?
During 20 minutes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but they're not in tutorial because they haven't self-selected and they haven't been referred. So we talk to them, and if they have the 2 or more Fs and identified in what area, why, and looking at their grades, and if it's consistent with last year, then they would be plugged into a tutoring, paired up with someone a tutor to help them. If it's completely inconsistent, then there's other issues involved. Not being able to fit in, or not being not connecting with school. So we're looking at, in comparison of last year's grades, this year's grades, discipline of last year's and this year's, and what's happening with them this year.
Okay, the last question I have is about a timeline. You said the cohort 1 is a 3-year timeline. Does cohort 2 come in not after the 3 years, but they start next year and then they've got their 3 years? So, okay, just want to make sure that it kind of moves along. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Atterbury, Ms. Dieter, Ms. Pack, it starts with leadership, and we really appreciate you trying to move this object that direction. And Anna, I'm really happy to hear that you're involved in that. I think the most powerful thing in all is the student involvement. And you made a comment, I believe, that you said that you wanted to have students determine the culture of the school as opposed to administration telling you. And is that right? Did I form that right? Because I think that's a powerful statement that the input of the student on their campus is extremely important. Could you go back over that again?
I was speaking about how students now are involved in attending the instructional leadership team meetings teachers have, and that so the teachers are also planning, but now that we have students involved, that they're trying to make a solid permanent plan that if administration did change or leave, that it would stick with the students and the teachers, not up to administration. So yes, our campus, we would all know what we want, we know like solidified, and we would progress from there.
You're creating the culture.
Yes.
Thank you. I think it's great.
Great, thank you. One last thing, you hit the nail on the head when you said leadership is key. I want to thank Mr. Atterbury, Ms. Bedica, and Ms. Basinger back there for allowing counselors to go to a leadership conference, a summit, to bring back more programs to support students.
Thank you all.
okay, thank you. I have a statement, just don't leave yet, not finished. A statement from Ms. Castle, emailed, it says, thank you to the entire staff at Bear Creek High School for demonstrating the school-wide implementation of PBIS. It can make an astonishing difference in suspension rates and school culture. Thank you to Dr. Washer, Don Vedica for bringing this exciting program to Lodi Unified. He says, I am very supportive of this program. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about it because I'm familiar. You have a monumental job here, and you're doing a great job, I think. I know because you're getting some results. I see the results here. It's like coaching. You know, the athletic teams are important. You have to have the positive and the caring and all these little consequences that you have for not doing the right things and that type of thing, and it helps. During my tenure, I used to have my football team guide those freshmen the first day of school to go through their classes and make sure that they were in the right areas and so forth. Next thing is buy-in by teachers. You have to have a buy-in by teachers. You can't have, oh man, I know how teachers are. I know I've worked with them and worked with a whole lot of them, especially at the level where you're working right now. And it's important that all teachers are caring. I know you don't work in an informal situation, but you do have class management. In my area, I worked a lot of in informal areas where I could talk to individual students and make quite a bit of difference on them, make them turn around and really behave and produce. In the classroom, of course, it's difficult because you get them for your classroom and then you get the Common Core to teach and that kind of thing. But the teachers that are in the leadership area and the coaches and the administration, Bill, you and Enrique and all these people that are for this, Don, gosh, what a positive thing. And I always thought that anything that, as a teacher, if you have one positive thing to tell one of your students each day, a different one, my gosh, what a difference it makes. you'll have them right here, and they want to stay after school with you, like, you know, like your father. You want to stay, what can we do for you? And, you know, that's a good thing, because some of those students in a diverse situation that you have are not cared for too much at school. Some have single parents, and they're out there working at night. They stay at home by themselves, and they run the whole show. So if the teachers do this, what an outstanding thing would happen. I appreciate your work, and I'm going to go over there and observe it. Thank you very much, all of you, for your work on this. Do we have a public? Scott?
Yeah, Scott Keithley, President, NAVA, Dr. Washer, and board members. I just wanted to point out that one of the challenges that both McNair and Bear Creek face that Lodi Middle School and Millswood don't face is that those students at Crystal McCullough and Murata start class time around 8:55 a.m. And then we ask those same students that go from 8th grade to 9th grade to start school at 7:20 a.m. That's an hour and a half difference versus if they're attending Millswood or Lodi Middle School, they're starting around 8 o'clock, and then in 9th grade starting at 7:20. And I know my daughter, who attended Lodi Middle School, is now attending 9th grade at Tokay and is enjoying it very much. In fact, we had a volleyball match today, and the team won 2 out of 3 games, so they took the match, so it was a lot of fun. Anyways, I noticed that it is, of course, she is playing volleyball, so there's a lot of activity there, so she's exhausted from that too. But it is much more of a challenge for her to get up at 7, to be in class by 7:20. So I just feel it's got to have some effect upon those 8th graders that then go to 9th grade at these 2 high schools so much earlier, hour and a half earlier. There's no way that cannot have an effect on the difficulties that they're having when they start high school. And with the great programs that they just shared with us at Bear Creek, maybe that's something that can be shared with those students to determine how difficult it really is for those groups of students from North Stockton to have to wake up that much earlier. And some time that was just, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it is for them. I wouldn't want to go through it myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. All right, we'll continue on with the agenda. Update on work with community members to improve academic achievement of Black African American students. Dr. Washer?
Thank you, Mr. Nava, members of the board. I just want to give you an update on the work that we have been doing. We have an opportunity to work with community members to address issues of a subgroup population of our students, actually a subgroup that is, according to state achievement measures, the lowest achieving subgroup in the district. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we're doing to address those issues. First of all, just a layout of why this is important in the current situation. Sorry. We have in this particular subgroup of Black African American students, they self-reported on the California Healthy Kids Survey that they have a high rate of F's in school. They had a high response to the item that are you absent due to suspensions. They had a high rate responding to the item that they do not feel connected to school or part of the school, or they do not feel safe at school and have been harassed at school. And their responses were higher on those items than any other group of students. They are also the lowest performing subgroup by ethnicity. This shows the past CST tests from several years and then the new SBAC in both English and math all those years, their scores were the lowest. And then as has been mentioned, there's some disproportionality within our district. This group in particular is suspended and expelled at a higher rate than others. So what is this group? These are the folks who are involved. We have district staff involved, and we also have a group of volunteers who are working on as a steering committee, and part of the plan is to bring in other community members as well, that these community members would serve as sort of the key communicators for the district and connect us to other folks in the community who can help us with this effort. So what is the plan? First of all, we need to find a way to identify the issues. What is causing the achievement levels? And so we have a survey that we've identified as a good measure. It's a developmental asset survey, and that was attached to the agenda item as a sample of what that survey is. So that'll give us some data, some pre and post data on issues that students are facing. And based on that information that we get from students, we would develop a plan to address those key areas. It could be tutoring, it could be mentoring by an adult, whether it's a staff member or a volunteer from the community. It could be finding ways to connect the students to school. It could be career awareness or exploration and helping with goal setting. There would also be a very strong outreach to the community, whether it be faith-based relationships with those organizations. There is a very strong Greek community that many of our African American adult community members belong to that do community service and outreach for students. And of course, there would be a strong effort to work with the parents of the students to help them understand the importance of school, how to be an advocate for their child at school, issues related to health, wellness, attendance, those types of things. Then at the end, we would, or in process, we would evaluate as we go to see if we're making a difference. So we're looking at currently in September, identifying the students who would need this type of intervention. And we're looking at our current 4th through 7th graders who have been identified as Profile 1 based on their last year district assessments. And then our current secondary students, 8th through 12th graders, who have a GPA below 1.5 last year. So we looked at the current students who were with us last year. For example, the 11th graders last year are now 12th graders. So we took that group and just moved them forward. We're looking at about 430 students based on that criteria. That would be the pool of students that we would try to reach. We would also communicate with parents, send a parent letter home that was also attached to the agenda item, letting them know about this effort and what the benefits could be for their children and ask their permission to participate. We would have our community volunteers help us communicate with the parents. We have flyers ready to go in different areas in the community where we know would reach this population. And also are set to make phone calls if necessary as well. We know that that personal connection may be more important than an automated phone call, a letter, or a flyer. Then next month we're looking at the students from these 430, the group that come back with yes, they'd like to participate, having them complete an anonymous survey. This is done online. This is a company that puts this out and scores it for us. This is not an in-house survey. It's about a 15-minute survey that will be administered at school. And then November to December, the committee would get together to look at the results of that survey and come up with action plans to meet those needs based on where the kids are in the district and how to group those accordingly. We would be communicating with you and with the site administrators and start phasing in some support services for these students, hopefully in January. The survey will cost a little under $1,000. This will enable us to get it twice in 1 year as a pre and post survey. Mailing out the letters, we're estimating about $250. We would want all of our volunteers fingerprinted, and I don't know if that's an accurate reflection of the cost there. And of course, that would depend on how many volunteers are involved at a given time for the cost. That's an update on what we're doing. Answer any questions, and we also
Dr.
have our
Washer,
team in
any
the
comments
audience.
from the board?
Comments and questions. Your steering committee, the makeup of it, why isn't our assistant superintendent for elementary on there as well? Since those are the grades that we're covering. We're also covering 4 through 7. And I really have a question too about why we're starting at 4. As Mr. Womack has pointed out so many times, a big problem is getting these kids early and helping them with their issues then before they become real problems. I totally agree with him on that. I know he was going to say that, but I've got...
We can certainly add the assistant superintendent of elementary on this. We had started this a while back, and we were giving her a little breathing room, but we certainly can put her in on this as well. We decided to start with 4th grade because of the data that we would have available, also because of the type of survey that this is. It is geared more towards 4th on up.
Right.
It is not written and formatted in a format for the younger kids. So it's not an intentional leaving out the younger kids. It's we know that this is research-based and designed for students at a certain level, and so we went with that to start.
I totally understand that. That makes sense. I mean, I love the way you structured this thing. It looks like a really good idea. I would ask you, though, to look for a way to include some of those the younger grades, because that could be an issue. Also, I want to give you a name of a person who would be great on the steering committee, and that's Grover Davis. Outstanding. I worked with him as a community liaison at Creekside. He's got a real way of understanding kids and the issues and going to homes, because you're not going to get a hold of everybody through a letter or a phone call. You know, you're going to have to do some home visits on this to get people involved. You're going to have to press it. But other than that, I love your program. I think it's great.
Thank you, George. Any other comments?
Joseph?
Yes.
Can I just add on to what Mr. Neely was saying? Perhaps the nexus with the younger kids could be that as we're talking and engaging these community members, is we look at the demographics of their home. I mean, they may have younger siblings, and so the issues would be the same as we're looking at those. So that might be the tie-in, would be looking at the siblings in the home.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a note here from Ms. Castle. I believe that this new effort to form a district and community partnership to improve the academic achievement of African American students is very commendable. The proposed plan has much promise, and I thank Dr. Walsh for taking proactive steps to work more forcefully on behalf of our African American students. That's from Ms. Castle. Now, for me, I would again agree that the mailing to the elementary 4, 7, some of those letters will get to the parents and be filed somewhere. That's why I agree with George in getting some people that are maybe CWA or people that are counselors that are involved to search for these people and get the word out that they receive these documents so they would get a feedback from them. I agree that as far as the younger grades, and it's such an important part that we do. And Ms. Walsh, you already told us that 4th through 7th because of the type of survey, which is good. But if we get a hold of them between the 4 and 7, I think that takes care of a lot of these. It solves a lot of the problems at the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade level. When I used to get them on the 9th grade level, and they go, I said, would you read this article in the Stockton Record? And, oh, no. Then I have to go privately and ask the student, why didn't you? I said, Coach, I don't know how to read. I mean, that's a shame. They don't know how to read, and they're in the 9th grade. And what are they doing in class? Put their head down because they can't get any feedback from them. So again, that's important that we do it at the lower level. Any other comments? Thank you, Dr. Washer. Yes. Comments from the audience?
Dr. Washer, President Nava, members of the school board, Lisa Wilkins, Vice President of the Lodi Education Association. So I have a question for you. In your budget and your anticipated costs, one of the things you want to provide for these students is tutoring, mentoring, connecting to students to school, career awareness, exploration, goal setting, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to take people, and I was out during part of your presentation, and I apologize, so I wanted to know who's going to do this, and if there's costs associated with that, what would they be, and you know, I don't see them reflected here, so that was my question.
Mr. Nava, members of the board, it's not reflected there because the plan has not been developed yet, so those have not been identified, but there certainly might be some additional areas that we address. In the LCAP does call for parent engagement activities, so there are budgets that would fit this type of effort. If there are things already at the schools, for example, the after-school programs that students are not taking advantage of, that they could be steered towards. If there are things such as the Bear Creek folks described that students are not participating in, that they could be counseled to, that are already there, that would not cost extra money, that could be part of it. And a big piece of this is the community aspect of it. There is great dependency on community support with this. And the connections that we can bring in because we have community folks involved, that is a volunteer situation that does not cost money. It would be the fingerprinting of the volunteers. So it's a little ambiguous, and I acknowledge that at this point because the plan, we haven't done the survey, we haven't developed the plan based on the results of the survey, but there could be cost, or it could be things that we already have in place that we're steering kids toward to make sure that they're taken advantage of and utilizing volunteers.
Okay, and then thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. And one thing I think needs to be considered is transportation. It's been my experience that a lot of students who should be taking part in the after-school program don't because of transportation issues. They don't have any way of getting home because there's no late buses, at least in the middle school arena, and I'm sure in the elementary school as well. So that's something that needs to be considered in doing this. I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see it. We just need to make sure that, you know, all the blocks are in place so that we can get every student who is eligible and willing, and their parents want them to be there in this kind of a program. I think it would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll continue on with the agenda, addressing mold issues in school facilities. Mr. Hearn, I know, do you have a group that's going to present this, or?
We don't have a presentation. We're here to answer any questions that the board may have, since board member Neely brought this up and asked it to be introduced.
Okay, and all these explanations are out and they're transparent to the whole.
They have been out for months, years actually, some of it. We'll have Mr. Sun and Mr. Slater come up also to be able to answer some questions of the board.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, Joe, I asked for this to be put on the agenda because there's been some questions about how we handle this. And I'm really not sure, so I wanted to find out and get a little more information on. And I've looked at the information that you guys provided, and thank you very much. I got some questions on it as well. But I think one of the most important things that we can do is to elevate the importance of this, so that when there is a report of mold in a classroom or at a school, that report goes to the superintendent. Now, it may come through M&O, but everybody's got to talk about it. It's got to be like one of those issues that it becomes a top priority. When we have mold, you need to know about it, Dr. Washer, And so it needs to be a mandatory reporting, that anytime anybody in this district reports mold, we don't wait till it's checked or anything else, we get it to the superintendent. Because we've had too many issues with this in the past. And there's been talk about us being slow to do it, and then I would, I don't know what has happened on this in the past, but I know that there's concerned people about it. And there's enough concerned people that it kind of indicates that maybe we haven't done this as quickly and as efficiently as we should. And that's why I think it needs to go to you. So and we need to be told about it. I don't really like finding out about it on Facebook, but that happens. So that's the one thing. Now, as we go through some of this stuff, I'll have some other questions. Like, you have an indoor for Morgan Elementary School. You have a thing about testing the rooms. Do you? And some of them are 2018, 2014, or 2008. I'm sorry, 2014, 2015. There's a 2009. Do we randomly check? Is that how we do it?
No, if there's a suspicion of mold, and then one of the protocols may be to test. What that includes is the history, because we keep a history on all of the testing that we've done throughout the district. So we have some sort of track record of what's going on in a particular school or classroom. And so that's that piece of data that you saw.
Okay. All right, and I want to make one thing clear before we go through all this. I'm not out to peg anybody on this. I'm just looking for a solution moving forward so that we don't have these issues again, so that they're quickly taken care of without any kind of delay. So, can you somebody talk about the situation at Julia Morgan? Are we finished?
Yes.
We're completing the last two classrooms.
So we're not finished?
There's two more classrooms still in the working process and will be done soon. Yeah.
All right.
We will then do follow-ups and do random tests throughout the year
at Morgan.
And
we have the equipment to do these tests ourselves?
No, we do not. We have to contract with, what's their official title, the hygienists,
Industrial hygienists.
Industrial hygienists. They have to have a certificate to be able to do it. And of course, it then goes to the same testing laboratory, no matter who the hygienist is. And of course, that's part of the cost of the test.
Okay, and what is the cost of the test?
I decided, because of the number of complaints at Julia Morgan, to do an entire test through a second party, and that cost $10,000.
Wow. Okay. And they tested every room?
They tested every room in the school.
Okay. And the results aren't here, right?
No, those documents, but they are in there. Okay. They were given to the school when they were made available. There was a summary sheet and then the detailed sheet that the principal was given.
I don't have results. I've got the results that say 2014, 2008, all that kind of stuff.
I didn't think we had those in that.
I do believe that we sent those to you when they
Oh, a
came
separate
out.
one?
It was a
Okay,
separate email,
all right.
yes, when they first came out.
I thought that was preliminary. Yes, not on board package.
Do we have any other schools that are currently experiencing mold issues? Have reported any types of issues?
Anytime there's a moisture problem, there can be a mold problem. And that was the problem with Julia Morgan, because some of the construction was done on it well over 25 years ago. And that's one of the causes that we know Julia Morgan had. And part of it was the way that they installed their outside water bibs was incorrect, which made the water, if there was any type of leak at the hose, then it was feeding back into the actual wall. We also had a sealant problem with that particular school. We've addressed those, because that's what you have to address when you're looking at mold, what's causing the moisture. It can be as simple as a slow leaking pipe under a sink, or it can be anything that would cause mold. It could be the entire envelope of the building, it can be a bad roof, it can be any number of things that can cause mold. And also, we have to be aware that mold is everywhere. A lot of times when we do testing of a room, we will find that the mold count outside of the classroom is higher. So, and that's outside, truly outside in the open air. When you look at air quality reports, even when they're talking about allergies and so forth, sometimes you'll see that there's a mold count. And so mold is an issue, and different people have different reactions to mold. So that's part of the problem with allergies.
Okay, do we have a plan for fixing some of those items?
Yes. Mr. Nava, members of the board, Dr. Washer, we do want to switching from our MO process to being routine maintenance to more a preventive maintenance approach. So we can capture a lot of things that ahead of time to preventing things that to be react to the problems. So MO actually started 2 years ago. The custodial response team is one of our method to be more proactively to deal with maintenance facility issues. And those teams not only go into the classroom cleaning, they also inspect the buildings, inspect all the potential issues that could cause future facility failures. So those are the steps that we took in. And one of the challenges I want to just share with you I learned a lot about Mo last couple of weeks. Actually, so you know, my background is in nutrition and the food science, and when I studied Mo many years in the college, was to learn how to make a good food. And I don't know if you know, one of the Mo, penicillium, is widely used in the dairy industry, making good cheese. So also, I can name a lot of products that are associated with Mo. Soy sauce, it's all come from fermented soybeans and produce a tasty soy sauce we're using. So the point is that we deal with Mo on daily basis, anywhere in this environment. Outdoor, typically worse than indoor. And from all the testing we collected, it was proven that our indoor classroom, those microbial counts, a lot less than outdoor. So the challenge we have is that there are no current standards and regulatory guidelines for Mo. And we are shooting in dark. We don't know where to get the counts that are appropriately for a healthy school or healthy classroom environment. There's no standard. Second, there's no known threshold within where any can cause any human harm as a guarantee, at least not the organism that we found in the normal indoor classroom environment. So the typical industry standard is that they took a sample indoor comparing the outdoor samples. For Julie Morgan, the sample collecting same method as widely used in the industry. They're collecting 75 liters of air indoor and also collecting same around the exterior outside of buildings and comparing the counts. And this is called non-viable spore track testing methods, and they use widely in the industry. So, make a simple to explain it is, I'm not going to use this complicated Mo name. I use my name. If they find a bunch of Warren Son outside, find a few Warren Juniors inside, that's normal. If they find a bunch of Timothy inside, that is a trigger warning for further testing. Because most of Mo culture, more dominant ones that we found in the Julie Morgan cases is they are in the same pattern. They find significantly counts outside and they have very low counts inside. So basically, based on microbial counts, we almost can say, let's go inside to take a fresh air. rather than go outside for the fresh air. Actually, outside is a lot worse than inside, interior. So most of our classroom, I would say that we're safe, and like Mr. Hearns indicated, that the outside most of the time are a lot worse than indoor. So that's the nature.
Another proactive thing that we're looking at, and we're going to try different methodologies, is the actual air quality inside the classrooms and inside of our buildings. We're looking at different types of filtration systems, better filters, different kinds of filters, and seeing what those results will be. Again, once we try a different type of filter system, we'll take samples and before and after and see how we're doing there. We are taking a very proactive approach, and I honestly have to say I know a lot of folks in the industry, in the school business, a lot of different school districts, and I would say we have one of the most aggressive mold programs, certainly within the Central Valley and probably throughout the state.
If you don't have standards, if there are no published standards, why are you testing? What do you test against? You know, but I mean, what good does it do if you test something, you gotta have a standard.
Again, we're looking at that imbalance between...
Can we make a standard?
No.
We're testing the difference between indoor and outdoor.
That's it.
That's the main thing that we're looking at.
If they're both high.
They both high, that's normal. So the sport
I
they,
see what you're saying.
the
I got
sport
it.
they
I got
counted,
Yeah.
they counted
So
basically.
looking to see if the room is adding anything to the normal. Got it.
That's correct.
And also, once you run your sample, it'll tell you if it's something different than what's on the outside.
Yes, that is the area they focus on,
You gotta get
and we don't find that pattern in
So
Jewel market.
if you find any difference, does that indicate you have a problem?
Yeah, if the sample collected inside shows a different strengths of a mold or growth of a mold, or sports, I would say sports, then we would trigger for further investigation, look at the particular sport.
Should we, I don't know about this testing equipment, is it something, I mean, we've got 53 buildings, 53 schools,
53 schools.
Is something we should be doing ourselves?
Very complicated process. I just simplified it. That's my name.
It's not like you go down to Costco and buy
one. But this test will capture all kinds of sports, not just mold, all kinds of that can trigger causing human, allergy reaction.
Right.
So I would consider this test as a very completed test for indoor air quality.
How long does it take you to go out and test a building once you've gotten a report that there may be an issue?
Well, we put a rush on the last one when we did the entire school, and I would say that took
4 days.
4 working days before we had the test results, and that was putting a rush on it. We basically insisted that we had to have it right away.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now we have some,
I think Mr. Everett has.
oh, Mr. Everly?
If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. The indoor air quality procedural manual, is that in effect now, or is that a proposed thing to bring to the district?
We just formalize it, and we want to ask our, professional consultant to review it and give us some guidance, so we can follow the correct protocols and we can react to the problem more appropriately and timely.
Okay, there were a few things in there that I completely agree with, and I'll just kind of read a couple of them. Addressing an indoor air quality problem promptly is good policy. Parents are sensitive to unnecessary delays in resolving problems that affect their children. And it goes on to also talk about your employees. And that kind of tells me that I look at this issue in a couple of different ways. It can be broken up. one of them is reporting, another one is what do you have to do with, your testing, which dictates whether you have remediation or not, and the other one is communication. Okay? Some of the things that we shouldn't be surprised at is that, let's take a type of school that we have. We have a lot of K-6 schools that are two-story that are basically the same design. So it may be that, as part of a preventative thing, is that if you have mold in one of those schools, and of course you're going to not just remediate the mold, you're going to investigate what in the heck caused it. Water leak, roof leak, whatever. That shows you a weak spot in every one of those other schools, most likely. So that would obviously then cue you in to give those schools maybe an extra little preventative maintenance kick, so that we don't have to spend that time and effort and money, and worse yet, the possibility of having people with syndromes of, or symptoms of mold or whatever. This is kind of near and dear to my heart because I worked in a sick building for a number of years, and this brings me to the reporting part of it. We mentioned symptoms for years. Now, granted, this is a long time ago before the whole mold thing, and people were just kind of going, what do you do? Well, finally, it got to the point where the evaporative cooler that was controlling our building, they tested it. The next morning, a semi came, they unhooked it, put it on the semi, put a tarp on it, and drove it off. And we're all going, well, I guess we were right. So I am a little sensitive to the whole reporting thing. And whatever the procedures are, that's great. I think that kind of gets us going to it. But that procedure means kind of nothing if it doesn't spur the agency to action. Okay? And we communicate about it. Just like it was pretty shocking to see this thing tarped and hauled off, it's probably pretty shocking when people see workers in Tyvek suits walking around their school, and they're all going, "What's this guy standing next to this guy? What's going on?" That communication is absolutely everything. They need feedback once that report is initiated, and that's kind of, I saw a form there in that procedure manual. So kind of walk me through, how do you see somebody saying, man, I just haven't felt good every time, I'm okay when I'm home, I come here, by the end of the day, I feel whatever. So I report it. Who do I report it to and how? So if you could walk that through me, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Nava, members of the board, and Dr. Washer, the procedure, this is just a process to help us to get in there, and including how to better communicate with staff and the community. One of the piece information did not including this manual was we want to follow up with a questionnaire from whoever's filed the complaint regarding the indoor air quality. The questionnaire will narrow down for us to define the problem. If just normal sick or complaint or prolonged sick, I don't believe we have the credibility to diagnose what the problem is. I think that should come from the doctor, the person's doctor. So what we could do is narrow down what's caused. If it's an indoor air quality issue, normally 4 factors can trigger. Temperature, airflow, moisture level, and the cleanness of the environment. So if we look at those 4 factors, we find out which factor could trigger, then we will deal with those things a lot more faster and more effective.
Okay, that's okay. Let me drill down then. At what point then do we as a district, M&O, go look for those 4 things? how many complaints do you have to get before we look into it? And how long do we have to wait? I'm thinking immediately. So I'm asking, is that part of the structure that we're trying to get to make sure that our indoor air quality is good? We're not just talking adults, we're talking children. And we all know that children are more susceptible to things than adults. So answer that. How long and what's my process? Now, to me, that's number one. And then the remediation, the prevention, all that communication is all in there with it. But how do we start?
So, like I said, if we got a report, we will immediately follow up a questionnaire to find out what specific issues are encountered. If it's illness, we will deal with, get more information, feedback from the doctor to help us point out where this illness could cause from. And if it's deal with those four factors that they deal with, then we will look for. And I would say, if we didn't address in the past immediately, we will address now immediately.
Right, and I don't necessarily believe that we should have to wait for a doctor to, or send somebody to the doctor to say you have X, Y, or Z, because symptoms present and there could be a lot of causes for it. The other part of that is if I call my doctor right now and say, hey, I'm not feeling well, I've got to come in, sure, I'll see you in December.
Mr. Everett, first it becomes a workers' comp. So if the person is ill and they believe it's caused from employment, then it would go under workers' comp, and it would be under a workers' comp doctor, and they would be seen virtually immediately.
And I'm certainly not arguing that fact, but there are children in that room. So that trumps everything.
Yeah. And if we do see a pattern of illness within the school, which we do look at, that's one of the things we do look at, is if we're seeing an abnormal attendance rate at a particular school, then we're going to be doing, as what Mr. Sun has indicated, those 4 areas to see if it is within the air quality. Sometimes it could be something as simply as viruses going, but we will look at that if we see an indicator. We look at that. We looked at Julia Morgan at the beginning of the school year and saw that their attendance rate was actually as good or better than comparison schools around the area. And also within, we did a comparison school at Lodi. So those are one of the things that we look at, because yes, we are concerned that there could be something in the air. But the protocols, he's saying it's a questionnaire. I think what we're looking at, these are the things that we do when we get the report. We will look at those 4 areas, and we are trying to react to it as quickly as possible, and as Mr. Sun indicated, we're going to even try to do that faster.
And that's great. I'm a reporting party. What's my first step? Is it paperwork that goes to M&O, or is it my principal, or both? I'm sorry?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, it would be the principal. You report it to your principal. The principal would call M&O dispatch. They would communicate it to me. I would send people out there as quickly as possible to assess it. The step that Warren's talking about soon, we'll stop at that point, hand them a form back quickly, have them fill out the form that asks them conditions of the room. Give us some idea what you got out there. And then we'll generate teams that go out there and look at the room and see, do we have a sick carpet, walls, ceiling tile, something there that is telling us we have a problem in this room. Absent of that, we probably don't have a problem. We're looking for dust and that sort of thing. We may close it at that point and see if it resurrects itself later.
Well, and that was all what I was trying to get to, is what spurs someone to actually take a look at it and start the investigation. And I think that's key. The other part of that is that if somebody does start a maintenance ticket, needs that, then do I receive communication that we are at this step, here's our future steps?
There's a series of communications that happen throughout the process.
Perfect, great. That's because that was one of the things in the book, is that the operations supervisor remains responsible for maintaining the problem resolving and communicating. So going through that booklet, there were a lot of good, positive things that I think would solve a lot of these problems rapidly. And I don't want us to just kind of sweep it under the rug and wait too long and make excuses and no, it's only one person. Well, if it's only one room, it's one person. Their leak is right outside their wall. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I don't mean to grill anybody about this, but I am very much firm in that we must act because we're talking about health of people. So, and the communication and mitigation, preventative maintenance, all of those components will solve a lot of this.
If I may, Mr. Everly, like to make one other comment. What was said earlier about two-story buildings, and if we had a problem, my God, we need to take care of all of them. We have. We have one problem, one of our two-story buildings, the exterior wall leaked a bit, so we put what we call an elastomeric paint on that building, and we replicated on each of our two-story buildings to prevent any further leakage. So when we find it, there is a quick response, but we have to know.
Because sealing the envelope roof walls is key. So absolutely. And I've had discussions with you about that, and I hear you. Thank you.
Last two to 3 years, we've done a lot of sealing, the roof repairing, and painting of the outside exterior buildings. We've done a lot of those buildings that we identify as potential issues. And plus, I think we are forming a team, the task force team, to deal with these MO issues when it's reported to MO. And the team formed with all the key personnel in FMP and also including MO staff.
Thank you, Warren. We have some audience today. You want to have any questions for the team here?
So I'm a parent of a second grader who has been in a classroom since she was in kindergarten that has tested positive for mold. At the last meeting that was held at the school of Julia Morgan, there was a question asked to the mold specialist that said, what are the symptoms of short-term and long-term? Well, he told us short-term allergies, itchy, watery eyes. The long-term, he would not tell us. So he also said children with autoimmune or immune compromise will be affected more. I have a child who has not one but two autoimmune diseases. I know several other parents whose children have asthma. I've seen that, last year when my daughter was in first grade, her teacher was out for quite a long time with pneumonia. My daughter also had pneumonia. I understand that you guys do have a program that you guys are working on, you guys are working with the remediation. But one thing I was not happy with was the fact that you guys started doing testing. Testing was not complete, and the results were not in, and you did not move children out of the rooms that had the mold. My daughter, I had to pull her out of school because I was afraid of how sick she could get from being exposed during that time before the test results came back. Well, test results came back, and in her classroom that she is in, room B3, it was elevated it was told it was only slightly elevated at 13,000 spores per, I don't know, unit. I'm not the mold specialist, but the tests compared to, they then moved her into a portable that only has 40. So it was, to me, 13,000 seems pretty elevated enough that you guys moved the kids out of the room, but you guys didn't do that before the test results came in. So am I going to be guaranteed sending my child to school that further testing is going to be done, that the air quality is going to be safe for the teachers and the students? I understand you guys attribute it a lot to leaky hose bibs and other things, but when this started happening 2 years ago and the A-pod, one room was affected, and then the next year there was another room. So it's not getting taken care of. It's going on now. This is my daughter's 3rd year at the school, and she has health issues. Also, my daughter, I was told that I could fill out a claim form. There is an expiration date of 6 months. So when I took her to the doctor back in January because she had pneumonia, her inhalers, this 2 rounds of antibiotics that she had to be placed on, I'm not going to get reimbursed for that because the 6 months, it says right on the claim form, it has to happen, the injury has to happen within 6 months in order to be reimbursed. I know several parents have these same concerns. I want to be assured that this is getting taken care of and that the root, if there is leaky pipes or whatever needs to be done, it gets taken care of instead of just sticking a Band-Aid on it and just remedying the rooms as they come up with already the mold problem. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Herbal, for Heberly, I'm sorry.
I'm used to it, don't worry about it.
For you expressing your concern as well. I mean, I'm glad that you really want to hold them to it and that it does get done. And I do understand that mold exists everywhere and that there are allergies, and we live in Valley Fever, an ag area and everything, but still that's no excuse for this mold in the classrooms and subjecting our young children and teachers to it. It's not a safe environment. Thank you.
Hi, I too am a parent at Julia Morgan, and I have a letter to read from a lot of the parents have signed it.
Could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Carla Waddups. Dear Dr. Washer, Julia Morgan parents are very concerned about the air quality at our children's school. In light of the seriousness and persistence of the above issue, we, the parents of Julia Morgan, feel that communication between the district and school community is of utmost importance. We trust that you are doing what is required by law and what is best for Julia Morgan Elementary School students and their families. However, when there is no communication plan or steps for parents and families to understand what is happening at the school that is easily disseminated, your message and intentions are lost. What does get shared on social media is the only thing parents have in writing that is easily understood. News stories and media reports, parents are left wondering if they should take their children to school or in what timeline the situation will get remedied. Mr. Coughlin has been very helpful in dealing with our concerns and questions. This situation should not be blamed on him. We are thankful that the district representatives had a meeting for the community. However, the meeting left the parents with more questions than answers, and it was held at a time most parents were not able to attend. In order for parents and families to fully understand the seriousness, timeline, and resources available to us due to mold being present at Julia Morgan, we ask for the following. A follow-up meeting for parents and families to attend that is accessible for all. This would ideally be a time after 5 p.m. However, if it needs to be at 4, we would gladly do our best to organize parents to take time off work to attend. It would be a much better time slot than a 1:30 p.m. meeting. We know you are aware that most parents work. This is a serious situation, and we would like parents to have access to the information firsthand. This is what we pay for as taxpayers and voting members of the community. We would like a timeline in writing of the testing and possible next steps for parents and their families to be disseminated by staff. We want to know when each classroom will be tested and when test results will be sent to us. Our students live and breathe the air at Julia Morgan for over 6 hours a day. We have the right to be updated of this process in a reasonable time frame and to understand what to expect in the next coming weeks. A process for parents to understand and complete if they feel their students' health has been negatively impacted due to mold being present in the classrooms they are in currently or in the past. At the moment, the community was given a name and a number of Jill Davis to contact. However, this in no way makes the process transparent for families or the school community. There needs to be clear instructions on what forms to fill out and what doctor's forms needs to be filled, if anything, in writing. We take our community health very seriously. We trust that you are working on this situation as you would work on a similar situation for your own child or in your own home. We are not just a Stockton school. We are a school that is part of the Lodi Unified School District, and we want to feel confident that you are giving our community the same treatment and consideration as you would in a community in Lodi. I would like to follow that up with my son's story, who is a 3rd grader at Julia Morgan and has been there since kindergarten. 1st grade, which was the classroom that was mostly affected, he was out for many weeks due to ear infections. The doctors couldn't figure it out. There was a 2-week time period that he was getting sick every night at right around 2 a.m. and the ear infections were caused from sinuses. In 2 weeks, he had 5 different antibiotics at one time. So the child was in pain, and he was in that classroom. His learning has been affected because of the timeout. At some point, I just started taking him to school and waiting just because I didn't want him to get held back, because there's a time limit on it. And that's the classroom that was affected, was the one that did that to my son. So what I would like to know, for me to be, me to have some confidence in the school, is how many mold issues have there been in the last 5 years, and what's been repaired at Julia Morgan? I would like to know the history of the mold, if anything's been done or reports have been made. I would also like to know what are the locations of the mold? Because if it's a location that, let's say, the A building or the A pod is constantly reoccurring, then what you're doing is not working, obviously. I want to know if the HVAC system is going through, sending the spores through each individual classroom. Is it independent to the classroom, to the pod, or to the school? From what we've noticed as parents, I'm not the only one who's bringing this up, but we're only getting air tests. We're not getting tests of any surfaces and nothing behind the wallpaper or within the structure itself. So if the HVAC system is sending the air through the system, it's going into the children's rooms, which may have been more contaminated when the HVAC system was on. I did look at the report personally. It was sent to me today. Luckily, I have a job that I can do that. But after looking at the report, there were some questions that I had. So I called the company in San Bruno that did the testing. And they said they are test only. Most of the companies are test only. There are a few consultants that we should be working with, or the person who had the test being performed should be working with, because they need to be specially trained. So are you guys working with a consultant, or are you trying to read the results yourself without an educated sense of awareness?
discussion, we use a consultant and they do the interpretation of the test. That's the way we have always done it.
Because from what I heard was that you guys were going off of the outside air versus the inside air, but I haven't seen anything about surfaces, and I haven't gotten the name of the consultant. I didn't see that.
Mr. Warren?
Mr. Nava and members of the board, Dr. Washer, we do test it. It's a ear, in the ear. Like I said, that they collect the 75 liters of air in the classroom as a representative, so-called, it's called the non-viable spore trap testing. So those will be done. It's an indoor.
But have you gone to a consultant to read the test results who's trained and educated in this? That's what I want to know.
It is.
Can I get the name of the consultant? Because I'm going to have questions as well. My son has been sick. I feel like I have the right to know.
Well, if you get the test report, that is the RGA that did the testing, and that is the consultant we use for interpreting the data to us.
And can you still answer why you only have done air instead of surfaces or structures?
Well, at this point, it was recommended by consulting company that at this point, we just look at the indoor air quality, and this is the standardized test.
When my son was in the second grade, he chose to sit by the wall, and he was the only child that was that greatly affected that I know of. But from what I understand, it was behind the wallpaper, and it wasn't until the instructor, the teacher, pulled it off herself. So are you not concerned about the walls or what's behind the wallpaper?
According to the consulting company, and we are advised that if the spore capture abnormal, then we will further look into interior wall, or what's behind the carpet. And so far, I'm not talking about the room was found in well, but the other rooms we tested the entire schools, we do not find such a pattern. So which doesn't trigger us for looking further. And like I said, mold are existed in any structural buildings, and before we open it, they are contained. They are not airborne, and so it will not harm human. So once they open it, yes, I would agree that they will cause harm to human.
So
at a certain level, so I don't know what the threshold is.
would a decoration on a wall, like a nail through it, or a child ripping off wallpaper, or a desk bumping into it, or just a toy being thrown across the room, open up and bring the spores into the air? Would that do it?
That will do it, but if we tested it, do not show, then that means that room is safe until we open it.
As a mom, I'm still not satisfied that my son is safe to go back to that pot where the mold is at. Because I don't feel that they're doing everything they can to get to the real root of the problem. Can you guys answer how often in the last 5 years there's been mold in there?
Yeah, explain. Yeah. Let me, if I may.
Go ahead, Mitch.
President Nava, Board, Superintendent. We have 448 completed IAQ reports throughout the district since 1998, before I got here. Of those at Julia Morgan, long list here, let me get to it. Julia Morgan, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 22 calls for mold that we went out to evaluate from various time frames. If you need the time frames, I'll have to painstakingly go through this report.
Yeah, can you say from what year it started? Is it from 98 or is it from
No,
sooner than
no,
that?
that was, it's later than that, so I'll give you the best that I can here. We've got reports back to 2005, most of it from 14 and 15, 2008. I believe in the board report, I think we broke it down with Morgan. I think that was in there that said how many each year of the 21. Most of them were in the 2013 or 14 time.
Those are 21 suspected indoor air quality issue or no found. I think you said.
I can't answer that right now. We pour it all together. If there's an indoor air quality complaint, we go through the whole process and resolve it with a letter to the principal that either we found nothing or we went through the reporting process and evaluation. We took remedial action. Of these, this report is at too higher level where I couldn't tell you each, how many of these did we find something, how many did we don't. I'd have to go back to my files. Be glad to share that with you.
Dr. Washer, just an idea. It's pretty apparent to me that there are still quite a few concerns by the parents, and maybe it would be kind of beneficial if we had another meeting at a more appropriate time, I guess, for parents, and see if we can get their answers and concerns taken care of. And it's just a thought, because we don't want to affect their absences, because that affects their academic future. So it's just a thought. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, board, and Dr. Washer and Mr. Heverly. Thank you so much for sharing our concern. I think most of your
Name, please. Name.
Bobby Moda. I think most of your mold reports, the 21, were done by me, and they started in 2003. And I complained once, twice a year, 3 times a year. Nothing ever happened. I talked to my colleagues. I said, I cannot be the lone voice in this. You other people have to get on board with me. Symptoms. When I'm at school, I have a sore throat. I have a runny nose that will not stop running. My ears hurt. When I go home, my nose never runs. I don't grab a Kleenex. My sore throat goes away. I come back to school, within 5 minutes, it's back. I'm sorry, I find your comments about mold very disrespectful. Obviously, you've never worked in a sick environment. I worked in A5 for 7 years, always sick. Which I know I've been directed not to do, but a heavy duty, very expensive air purifier helped me get through those 7 years. Each year, I informed the principal of how I felt. Never did it go anywhere. Never. I moved into the D pod, and I was complaining to one of my colleagues who was here about being dizzy. So dizzy that I could barely function. I was wondering, why am I dizzy? What is going on? And I was having this conversation, and she says, well, Bobby, look up there. There's mold. And yes, there was. The wallpaper is peeling down, and it's pure black. I go to my principal and I tell her, I have mold in my room. She gets the head custodian. She comes out and she goes, oh, Bobby, that's been taken care of 1.5 years ago. Don't worry about it. It's dry. Now, wallpaper is peeled back. So I peel it off all the way, about this much. this much. I take it and I lay it on my principal's desk and I said, there's mold in this room. And I'm sick and I am dizzy. Well, it gets taken care of right away. Never have I received a mold report from 2010 telling me what kind of mold I was exposed to. I go away, this was probably like early November. Then it comes Thanksgiving time and I come back to a room where both the D pods, they've been completely redone. I have white stuff all over my room. Was I ever told why those walls were fixed? What was behind those walls? Never was I ever told. I go back into A5, A6. I think I'm A6. I'm A5 now. And again, I tell my principal, I'm sick. Nothing's done. First year. Second year, I'm sick. I get sick all the time. Nothing's done. Third year, I sit my principal down in the chair and I beg him, please do an air quality test on this room. I love teaching at Julia Morgan, but this is the first year I said that I did not want to come back to work because I've been so sick. Thank heavens, and I just want to thank you, Michael Coughlin, thank you. I can't say thank you enough. He's the only principal that has ever listened and ever done anything about this. So, my room has mold in it last year. Other teachers are still sick, and this is when we start doing more investigating. I was at the workman's comp doctor, and he told me that there was a water problem at Julia Morgan, and it was the hose bibs. And then what happens after he's told me he's working with risk management and tells me what's wrong with the school, and then other teachers start thinking, okay, I'm going to start looking. I know we had a room in B pod that was done last year. The teacher was in that room, the water leaked. The wallpaper fell down, it's all moldy. What they did is they pinned it back up and they told her to forget about it. Yeah, and I'm not gonna say who it was because she's already had enough attention. But this is why there's not trust. This is why there's not trust between the teachers and the parents and maintenance. Is because we've had these types of issues at Julia Morgan. So procedures, you're talking about procedures that there's forms to fill out and you're talking all this stuff and I'm thinking, none of this is true. It's been since 2003 I've been working on this and I'm trying to get parents and teachers and saying there's something wrong with this school, and there is. And it's time to do something about it. I have a complaint. So who do I notify? Mr. Coughlin, you, the board, Dr. Washer. I've been gone for 4 days. I don't have a sore throat. I don't have a runny nose. My ears have cleared up. So tomorrow, when I get in the room and my nose starts to drip and I get the phlegm in my throat, or my throat goes in such a spasm that I can't even speak. It never happens anywhere, has never happened anywhere on the planet Earth, except at Julia Morgan, where my throat and everything closes up to where I can't even teach. I turn bright red and I cannot breathe. So tomorrow, I'll be filing my report again. My room's clean, but I hold my breath when I have to go into a pod. I have to go to the printer. I hold my breath. I don't go into the administration building unless I have to. That should be a way a teacher has to avoid a building. I don't want to stay in the cafeteria unless I have to. I don't like taking the kids to the library because I take them to the library and I get all choked up, get the phlegm and the sore throat. So my room's clean, but not the other areas. And I know your chest said they were, but there's something at that school. Maybe mold, maybe dust mites, it may be dust. But there's something there that continues to make me sick. Thank you for listening. I can see that I have all your attention. Thank you so much.
Dr. Washer, did you take the proper steps to resolve these problems that are at Julia Morgan? I think that it's a problem, and we'd like to resolve it and make sure that everybody is satisfied. I just, we talk about teachers and students and so forth. That's a crucial problem. So if we could get some proper steps to resolve this problem. Thank you. Any other comments?
One, I was listening to this report, and I noticed that one of the things that people were talking about is going around and looking for things that need to be fixed. And I noticed that when I go to school, sometimes, like, there's dry rot where the gutters are, the gutters has been detached or isn't working correctly from the building. And I think it's a really good idea that we have a set of eyes. I'm not actually trained to be a construction person, so if I'm noticing it, it's pretty noticeable. But someone who just goes through and says, okay, what things need to be fixed, and take care of it step by step, just like turning in. Went to back to school night, and there was a jagged fence that was, if the kids fell on it, it would hurt them greatly because it was broken. Those things just need to be done. So I hoping that that's what I heard you were going to do. Secondly, I know I was at Tokay, and I'm going to tell you, I was in the science building, which anybody knows that was the worst building for mold that we had. We had turned in for years that water was leaking through the walls, and the ceiling tiles were bowing down, and then we had a problem. And I'll tell you, quite frankly, I had a cough for years, and it was kind of in my family. The kids would say, "Oh, Mom, I always know where you are because of the cough." And then I moved out to the portable, and the cough went away. I didn't actually correlate the two at the time, but I go, why did that cough go away? And I realized, I had moved out. And it was so bad at Tokay, as many of you recall, that we had to actually close the school, come in and seal the building. It was a real mess. And I was fortunate that I was in the portable at the time. I can talk about one of the other health issues it was awful. And there was prior notification. I mean, Dr. Zanetti, called, there's mold on the wall, and he went over and sprayed it with bleach. And so, this isn't something that's a one-time kind of occurrence or just occurred in North Stockton. It also occurred in Lodi. So I'm thinking that we're going to be more and more proactive. The other thing that was mentioned earlier tonight was about the rodent feces. And many of you know that you cannot just sweep up rodent feces. They need to be taken care of in a special manner so that you don't contract a really terrible virus. And I know that when my son started teaching at Bear Creek, that's one of the things that we found in his room before he started teaching. And again, we brought out the bleach, and we were over there cleaning it up. So if we have that problem at Lockford or other places, we need to make sure that the feces are cleaned up so our students don't have it. We need to make sure that our custodial staff knows how to clean it up correctly, and we don't want to stir that stuff up in the air. And last but not least is the fomite surfaces. Fomites are any kind of surface that can transmit a disease, and so it's very important to keep those surfaces clean. And I know especially teaching at a high school where you have the students come in and they're all on the same desk, and they're dripping, their noses are dripping on the tabletops. It's really an important thing that we maintain these really, they don't have to be as sterile as a hospital, but they do need to be clean environments. And that's all I really have to say on this. I'm just looking forward to taking care of those. And now that I mentioned the rodent feces, I know that you'll take care of that responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Hanston, 514 West Locust Street, also a teacher at Julia Morgan. The question was brought up, how does a school track a cluster of illnesses? And I found it very interesting when you said that there didn't seem to be a pattern of illness, because I know from my colleagues who have taught in a pod, there is a pattern of illness that goes on there. And it's not only the teachers, it's been with the little kids that are over there. And little kids' bodies, like you said, they just can't take the same things that an adult can. So our teachers are sick, the children are sick, and I'm sorry, the idea that if a toy is thrown against the wall and it punctures the wallpaper and there's mold there, that's acceptable. It's not acceptable. Also, we have had 6 cases of cancer, 4 of the teachers that had worked in APOD, and then 2 of the people that worked in our administrative buildings. It hasn't occurred in any of the other places, which you think with the same pattern of the age of the women, that it would be something that would be through the whole area. The idea that it's clustered in a pod is suspicious. And this has been going on since 2003, and it's been dealt with in a very haphazard way. And we really need to have that room, that whole area shut down, portables moved in, our kids safe, our teachers safe, and the district really needs to take care of it. Also, you, Mr. Herman, you always are very good at telling us the names of people that you're dealing with. And I'm so surprised that we don't know the name of the consultant who read that last report for us. And the teachers are kind of concerned why the gentleman, I don't know, Mark, what's his name? That Mark, who had been working for us, was removed. And the last time he tested one of our classrooms, it took him 5 times to get a clear number that was presentable and acceptable. And we wonder if that might be why he is no longer doing the testing for us. Thank you.
Well, I believe Mr. Sun did indicate the name of the consultant that we use. And as I said, I asked for a second opinion. The gentleman and consultant that we had used in the past.
This lady said she called the consulting company, and they told the company that did the testing, and they told her that there needed to be a separate consultant, that they didn't do the consulting. So when you said that the company was consulting, that's a little, when the consulting company says that the company that did the testing says that they need to have a third party, and you're saying that the testing company was the person who read the report and consulted with you?
She called the lab, and they said that there needed to be a consulting company. The consulting company is the one who did the testing and gave it to the lab. As I said earlier in the report, most of the same companies, including the gentleman that you were talking about, uses that very same lab. So, and again, we wanted a second opinion, and we tested the entire school with the second opinion. And looking at the results and making comparisons, they're very similar into the same types of information that we received in the past.
Okay, that building is still sick.
Good evening, Dr. Washer, members of the board, Sue Kenmotsu. I'm also a teacher at Julia Morgan, so I'm rising to talk about 3 things. First thing, need to thank Mr. Neely for bringing this issue forward. As you can tell, it was a very, and continues to be, an area of great concern, not only for the staff at Julia Morgan, including our classified staff, but also and most importantly, for our parents, many of whom were here tonight, but as the discussion on other important items went on and on later into the evening, they got up and left. So my second suggestion is, I really liked what Mr. Nava had talked about and what Mr. Heverly had talked about, getting a time when our parents can actually attend a meeting and have their questions asked and answered would be so valuable. So I hope that that's an idea that goes forward. Mr. Hearn, at the very beginning of this discussion, I wrote it down because I thought it was so important. You talked about intermittent testing, because one of the concerns we have is that we have a series, you've heard of some of the problems that we've had. And as these problems continue to cascade, we learned from Mr. Coughlin, who's been fabulous with all of this, that there was going to be all-school testing. And Mr. Sun was standing outside my room. My kids, who are 6th graders and inquisitive, wanted to know if that meant he was bringing my hazmat guys out, because they find that very fascinating. So I opened the door and asked him, and he said no, he was working on something else. And we appreciated